If I had my wish, I've often thought, what would I like for people to think about me? Mm-hmm. He was a good guy and he cared. That would be it. Mm-hmm. Nothing more, nothing less.
So the NBA got it right. They chose the right silhouette.
It's the winter of 1956 at Morris Harvey College Gymnasium in Charleston, West Virginia. After nearly erasing an 11-point fourth quarter deficit, East Bank High School is down 63-62 versus Huntington East with a trip to the state basketball Final Four on the line. Senior guard Jerry West has just scored 5 straight points and caused a jump ball with just seconds left on the clock. Just as he had planned, Jerry West tips the ball perfectly down to teammate Jack Landers, who makes a game-winning layup with a large defender draped all over him. And just like that, East Bank High School would be going to the West Virginia State Final Four for the first time since 1939. In the State Final Four, they would match up versus future best friend and college teammate Willie Akers and Mullins High, who were supposed to be the state title favorites that season, but Jerry and East Bank would hold on to a 20-point lead at halftime, winning 77-73. And Jerry would finish that game with 43 points and 23 rebounds before then handily beating Morgantown in the state championship 71-56 on the back of 39 points from Jerry, giving his community the first state championship ever in their school history. Jerry would finish his senior season averaging 34.3 points per game, and to celebrate this once-in-a-generation type talent, they would begin an annual tradition of changing their town name to West Bank for a day on March 24th. After many schools fawned over Jerry West, including the University of Kansas, who had hopes to pair him with Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry would settle on the obvious choice, what he knew he wanted to do all along, his home state, the West Virginia Mountaineers. In his freshman season, freshmen did not play back then. You played on the freshman team instead. But as a sophomore, Jerry would play a ton, and his West Virginia Mountaineers would finish as the #1 ranked team in the country, but would get stunningly upset by Manhattan College in the first round of the NCAA tournament, 89-84. Jerry would finish the season with 17.8 points per game and 11.1 rebounds. His junior season at West Virginia, he saw his production go up quite a bit. He averaged 26.6 points per game and 12.3 rebounds. This time would be very different, however, for the Mountaineers in the NCAA tournament. After almost losing to St. Joe's in the second round, where they were down 18 in the second half and would win 95-92, a win over Boston University would send West Virginia to their first ever Final Four in program history, a record that would last until 2010 when Deshaun Butler and Bob Huggins would make the Final Four for West Virginia once again. Although it wasn't technically called the Final Four at the time, West Virginia would face unranked Louisville, and on the other side of the bracket, Cincinnati and Oscar Robertson would take on the University of California. But what everyone was hoping for at this point was Jerry West versus Oscar Robertson, and they were wondering, could they finally get the matchup they've been waiting for? The Mountaineers would take care of Louisville 95-79. Jerry did his part, and now it was time for Oscar to do his. Unfortunately, Cal's incredible defense that was put on by their coach and future Lakers general manager Pete Newell would stall Big O and the Cincinnati offense, limiting Oscar to just 19 points on 5 for 16 from the field, sending Cal to the national championship versus West Virginia. At halftime of the national championship game, Cal was up 39-33. The nation's best defense was outscoring the nation's second best offense, but Jerry and company would crawl back, making it a 1-point game with 41 seconds left, 69-68, before future Laker teammate Daryl Imhoff would get this putback, virtually sealing it with 20 seconds to go, 71-68. And this would be the precursor to what was the Jerry West experience, being so close on the biggest stage, yet so far. And in his senior year, they would lose to NYU in overtime in the second round of the NCAAs. Jerry would miss the final shot, averaging 29.3 points per game and 16.5 boards in that final season. As disappointed as Jerry was, in the 1960 draft, which took place on April 11th, he would go second overall to the Minneapolis Lakers, soon moving to Los Angeles. And of course, his contemporary Oscar Robertson would go first overall to the Cincinnati Royals. But before he would step foot on an NBA court, him and Oscar Robertson would first play in the 1960 Olympics in what Jerry says was the greatest achievement in his entire professional or collegiate career, winning a gold medal for Team USA. But in order to understand why this was so important for Jerry, we have to first go back to his childhood. When he was 13 years old, his oldest brother David was killed in the Korean War, and he is on record saying that changed him forever. You see, Jerry already had a hard time growing up. He didn't get along with his father, and according to Jerry, his father was very abusive towards him. But once he learned of his oldest brother's passing, who was his hero, Jerry says it would change his personality forever.
The day he got killed changed my life forever. You thought I was quiet before. I was really quiet afterwards.
This video is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. If you haven't heard of it, it's an app that allows you to pick higher or lower on your favorite players from your favorite sports. They're running a new customer special right now. Caitlin Clark needs just 1 point tomorrow. Sign up with code Hardwood to claim your special pick, plus a first-time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. Thanks, Underdog, for sponsoring this video. Let's get right back into it. Moving on to Jerry's rookie season in the NBA, there were just 8 teams in the association at the time, and it was still a very new sports league, being only 13 years old. Like I said before, the Lakers would move to Los Angeles before Jerry's rookie season, and they would hire his college coach, Fred Schaus. Jerry would move out to LA on his own completely with zero representation, no lawyers, no agents, nothing. And he quickly got a taste for what the big city and what the NBA was going to be like in his first ever rookie contract negotiation. Here's an excerpt from the book Jerry West by Roland Lazenby on that story. Lou Mose was the general manager of the Lakers, and he said to Jerry, "We think you're such a great player that we're willing to offer you a no-cut contract for $10,000 a year." Jerry said, "10,000?" Mose said, "What did you expect?" Jerry said, "I expected 15. Mose said, "Okay, I'll give you $15,000. The Lakers got basketball's great white hope for $15,000. In time, Jerry West would come to see that he had immediately fallen behind in this new money game. The Lakers would go 36-43 during Jerry's rookie season, and this would be the only year of his career that he would average less than 25 points per game, except for his last 2 seasons. The Lakers already had all-star Elgin Baylor drafted first overall in the 1958 draft. He'd burst onto the scene in his first 2 seasons, putting up insane numbers. Jerry would also be an all-star in his rookie season, averaging 17.6 points per game, 7.7 rebounds, and 4.2 assists. They would beat the Detroit Pistons in the opening round of the playoffs that year, as every team made the playoffs. And then they would take the powerhouse St. Louis Hawks to 7 games, losing in Game 7. But as a Laker, you had to be very hopeful. The St. Louis Hawks had just won a championship in 1958, and they would make back-to-back finals in 1960 and 1961. Before we get into the second season of Jerry West's professional career, here's another excerpt that shows the type of personality he was from the same book, Jerry West by Roland Lazenby. "I didn't feel I was competent enough to be consistent," West explained. "I would have outlandish scoring games, but maybe the rest of my performance would not be what it should. That was such a unique learning experience for me, and I was nervous all the time. That was a time when I should defer more to other players on our team, to Elgin because of his greatness. I didn't view myself as being in that category, even though I had started to make inroads into being a really good player. I had the ability to score, and I also had flaws in my game." In the 1961-1962 season, the Lakers would finish with the second best record in the league, going 54-26. Elgin Baylor would play just 48 games due to reverse duty with the Army, and Jerry would pick up the slack, averaging 30.8 points per game, 7.9 rebounds, and 5.4 assists. But what most people don't realize when looking at the career of Jerry West was how prolific of a defender he was. "We didn't keep steals in those days," said the longtime Laker Lakers scorekeeper John Radcliffe. But if we had, Jerry probably would have led the league. He used to take the ball away from everybody. He knew how to time it just perfectly, taking it down low off the floor. The Lakers would get a first-round bye in the NBA playoffs, and since there were only 8 teams, that put them automatically in the Western Conference Finals, which was called the Western Division Finals at the time, defeating the Detroit Pistons again in 6 games and matching up for the first time of many with the Boston Celtics and Bill Russell. The Lakers would get up 2-1 in this series, winning Game 2 129-122, where Jerry had 40, and in Game 3 117-115, thanks to 6 straight points from Jerry West, including this game-winning steal and layup as time expired. And now you know why they called him Mr. Clutch. This was absolutely unbelievable. 23-year-old Jerry West and 27-year-old Elgin Baylor were up 2-1 in the NBA Finals over Bill Russell and the legendary dynasty in the making, the Boston Celtics. After losing Game 4, they would go up 3-2 in the series again, completely on the back of Elgin, who finished with 61 points and 22 rebounds, a playoff record that would stand for 25 years until Michael Jordan scored 63 points versus the Boston Celtics in 1986. Back home for Game 6, the Celtics do what they seemingly always did, win in must-win games, 119-105, bringing us back to the Boston Garden for Game 7. And this sequence at the end of Game 7 is one of the biggest what-if questions in NBA history. The game was tied 100-100 with about 5 seconds to go when Frank Selvey for the Lakers misses this 8-foot shot. The Celtics then go on to win this game 107-105 in overtime. And we have to ask ourselves, what if Frank Selvey makes that shot? Do the Lakers become the dominant 60s dynasty that we talk about? Would it have mentally affected them in future finals versus Boston? I'm really not sure, because you could make the argument that the Lakers were better than the Celtics in only about 2 of these finals, just as a team and talent-wise. In those early days, they never had a center to match up with Bill Russell, who was an absolute problem, specifically on the defensive end. But I guess that's something we're just never going to know. Moving on to 1962-1963, it's a new year with very similar results. The Lakers defeat the Hawks in 7 games and lose to the Celtics in 6. But this was still a very close series. 3 of their 4 losses were by 3 points. Bob Cousy would then retire for the Celtics, and Boston just seemed to continue to get better. They had just drafted John Havlicek as a rookie, and Sam Jones would take a leap forward in Cousy's absence. The 63-64 season, Jerry and Elgin dealt with injuries on and off. They would lose in the division semifinals to the Hawks, one of the few times that Jerry West Lakers teams missed the NBA Finals. In Jerry's 5th NBA season, Elgin would blow out his knee in Game 1 of the Western Division Finals versus the Baltimore Bullets, and Jerry would just absolutely take over in this series, responding with an NBA record that still holds to this day, the most points per game in an NBA playoff series with 46.3 points per game, again matching up with the Celtics in the finals, this time without Elgin Baylor. And the Lakers were no match for Boston, losing in 5 games. Sam Jones was incredible for Boston, averaging 27.8 points per game in that series. Bill Russell had 18 and 25, and Havlicek averaged 18 as well. Going into the 1965-1966 season, doctors told Elgin Baylor that he would never play again due to tearing his patellar tendon in those NBA playoffs. Elgin battled his way back on the court and defied the odds. However, Elgin was 31 years old when this happened, and a major knee injury like that in 1965 meant that you probably are not going to be the same player you were, especially someone with as much athleticism as Elgin Baylor. He would take a dip in production that year, averaging just 16.6 points per game and playing just 30 minutes, leaning on Jerry to produce even more, and he had his first 30-plus point per game season at 131.33, which was good for second in the entire NBA at the time behind Wilt Chamberlain. Again in the playoffs, they would defeat the St. Louis Hawks in 7 games. And like a broken record, for the 4th time in Jerry West's 6-year career, the Lakers would meet the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals. After stealing Game 1, LA gets down 3-1 in this series. They fight back to make it 3-3, heading back to the Boston Garden for Game 7. And in an ugly offensive showing for both teams, where each team shot 37 and 35% from the field, the Lakers would lose 95-93, narrowly erasing a 16-point deficit in the 4th quarter, giving the Celtics their 9th title in 10 seasons and their 5th in 6 years versus the Lakers. The 1966-67 season was not a good one for LA. They finished just 36 and 45. Hampered by injuries from both Jerry and Elgin, they would lose to Rick Barry and the Golden State Warriors in the first round of the playoffs. After missing the first 2 games, Jerry would try to give it a go in Game 3, but he would get re-injured in the first minute of the game, and the Lakers would get swept. This was one of the few seasons where the Celtics didn't even make the NBA Finals. Wilt Chamberlain and the Philadelphia 76ers had finally broken through, facing the Golden State Warriors, and the Sixers would take home the title that year. Ahead of the 1967-68 season, longtime Jerry West head coach at both West Virginia and with the Lakers, Fred Schaus, would move to general manager, hiring Butch Van Bredekoff from Princeton as their new head coach. With a new owner, Jack Kent Cook, the Lakers would debut their new stadium, the Forum, and new uniforms with new colors, ditching the Minneapolis blue and white for purple and gold. Jerry would play just 51 games in the regular season, dealing with more injuries, but he was back for the playoffs. They would swiftly dispose of both the Chicago Bulls in 5 games and the San Francisco Warriors in 4. One interesting note I want to add about the Warriors is that although they made it back to the Western Division Finals, they did not have Rick Barry any longer. After averaging 35.6 points per game in just his 2nd year in the NBA, leading the league in scoring, Barry would try to sign with the Oakland Oaks of the ABA, a team coached by his father-in-law and college coach, and as a result, the NBA would ban him for multiple seasons. After sweeping their opponent, the Lakers were waiting patiently for who they would face in the NBA Finals. In the Eastern Division Finals were the age-old, the Celtics and the Sixers. Bill Russell in his first season as player-coach versus Wilt Chamberlain. Boston was down 3-1, but would come back and beat Philadelphia, making another matchup in the NBA Finals between the Celtics and the Lakers. Again, misfortune would strike for Jerry West, spraining his ankle in the closing minutes of Game 4 as they tied the series 2-2, almost missing Game 5, where they lose in overtime 120-117 before losing in 6 games again to the Celtics. If you're keeping count, Jerry West has now been in the NBA for 8 seasons, making the finals 5 times and losing each time to the Boston Celtics. Heading into the 68-69 season, the Lakers would make an absolutely massive move. After growing increasingly discontent in Philadelphia, Wilt Chamberlain asked to be traded, and the Lakers were more than happy to oblige, sending back Archie Clark, Darrell Imhoff, and Jerry Chambers in return, all the while signing Wilt to $250,000 per year, which at the time was believed to be the highest contract signed by an athlete in the entire world. After all of these years not having a center to counter the great Bill Russell, the Los Angeles Lakers now finally had one. It was time for Jerry West and Elgin Baylor to exercise their finals demons, ending this once and for all. There was quite a bit of doubt that a personality like Wilt Chamberlain was going to fit in with Elgin Baylor and Jerry West, and although there were lots of bumpy roads when it came to personalities clashing in Wilt's tenure with the Lakers, immediately this team was winning. They'd go 55-27 in Wilt's first year, while he averaged 20.5 points per game and 21 rebounds. With about about a week to go in the regular season, the Celtics and the Lakers would match up, and the Lakers would absolutely dominate them on national TV 108-73. So again, it looked like this would be Jerry West and Elgin Baylor's year. They'd take care of the San Francisco Warriors in 6 games in the opening round, but Elgin and Wilt did not have that good of a series. Elgin shot just 33% from the field, averaged 12 points per game, and Wilt also was not shooting it well from the field either, 50% on just 12 points a game as well. They would take care of the Atlanta Hawks for I don't know how many times now in the Western Division Finals in 5 games, advancing to the NBA Finals against the Boston Celtics once again. Game 1 of this series was an instant classic. Jerry West had 53 points and 10 assists. Bill Russell was quoted saying it was the greatest clutch performance ever against the Celtics, and the Lakers won 120-118. In game 2, Wilt Chamberlain would score just 4 points, going 1 for 6 from the field. However, he would have 19 rebounds. And again, his presence on the floor was opening things up for Jerry West, who finished with 41 points and 8 assists. Elgin Baylor would score the final 12 points for the Lakers in a game 2 victory, 118-112. The Lakers were now up 2-0 in one of very few finals matchups where they had home court advantage. Rumors were swirling that a sweep may be incoming for the Lakers, but Boston would prove to be a tough out. They would win game 3, 111-105 after the game being tied heading into the 4th quarter. In game 4, the Lakers found themselves up 88-87 with just 15 seconds to go with the ball. All they had to do was inbound the ball, make 2 free throws, and this game is over. Instead, Johnny Egan would turn the ball over on the inbounds pass. Some say it was a foul. Sam Jones goes down, misses a shot with only a couple seconds left, but the Celtics get the offensive rebound and call timeout. And Sam Jones again makes this unbelievable game-winning shot, winning it for the Celtics. The Lakers didn't just have a chance to go up 3-1. They were likely to go up 3-1, but instead, the series is now tied at 2-2. Doug Krikorian, a sports writer for the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, had this to say after that Game 4 crushing defeat. The Lakers regrouped and headed home for Game 5. Coming back, no one was more depressed than West, recalled Krikorian. Of course, you could see the stuff that was playing on his mind. He'd already lost 5 times to the Celtics. How could that have happened? There was no way Sam Jones should have hit that shot. Baylor was all over him. How did he make it? He just threw it up and it went in. West was depressed, and it was like an omen of things to come. In Game 5, the Lakers dominated pretty much from start to finish. However, Coach Van Bredekoff still had Jerry West in the game late when the game was decided, and Jerry West pulls his hamstring. Just to give you a quick glimpse of what Jerry West meant to this Lakers team in this series, here is the Lakers box score from that Game 4 loss, 89-88. Jerry West had 40 points, 6 boards, 4 assists, while shooting perfect from the free throw line and 50% from the field. And only Keith Erickson was in double digits for the Lakers outside of Jerry. I will say Wilt Chamberlain was massive on the boards. However, the Lakers needed more on the offensive end from him and from Elgin Baylor. So being up 3-2, going back to the Boston Garden for Game 6, with Jerry West having a severely strained hamstring, wasn't necessarily as exciting of a situation as it probably should have been. The Celtics dominate this game, even though they only win 99-90, and Doug Krikorian said that Jerry West shouldn't have even played. But that was something about Jerry West. He played through everything. He didn't care about media attention. He didn't care about recognition. He just wanted to win. So we were back to the Forum in Los Angeles for Game 7, and Lakers owner Jack Kent Clark decided to put balloons in the rafters before the game, which Bill Russell, the player coach, used very wisely to motivate the Celtics. And it was something that pissed off Jerry West greatly. The Celtics would lead 59-56 at half, with the Lakers down 17 early in the 4th quarter. Bill Russell and Sam Jones picked up some 4th fouls, and the Lakers started surging back. Wilt Chamberlain asks to be taken out with about 5 minutes to go after he had some pain in his knee coming down from a rebound. Jerry West cuts the lead to just 3 points, 103-100, and then Mel Counts hits this jumper, cutting the deficit to just just 1 point, and this was where Wilt Chamberlain asked to go back in the game. There's a long story here between Coach Van Bredekoff and Wilt Chamberlain beefing throughout the entire season, and Van Bredekoff basically just says back to him, "We're doing well enough without you." Wilt sits the rest of the game, and with the Celtics up 1, Keith Erickson pokes the ball away. It somehow goes right to Don Nelson, who rises up for a 15-footer, barely beating the shot clock, and as you can see, a pretty lucky bounce that ends up going in. And that was the cushion that the Celtics needed, winning this game 108 to 105. Again, for a 6th time, Jerry West and the Los Angeles Lakers would lose to the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals. This was the first year that the NBA gave away a Finals MVP, and Jerry West would be the player to receive that award, the first and only player from a losing team to win Finals MVP. He finished Game 7 with 43 points, 13 rebounds, 12 assists, and across the entire series, he averaged 37.9 points per game, 4.7 rebounds, 7.4 assists on 49% from the field. This is what Jerry had to say about his Finals MVP award, and I have to warn you, he's not happy about it.
Oh, just how stupid it was that I would receive that and I wasn't part of the winning team. Didn't seem right. It was meaningless for me regardless of how I played.
And here's a quote Jerry had from the same book I've been referencing quite a few times in this video, Jerry West by Roland Lazenby. "Most of the years we played, they were better than we were," West said. "But in 69, they were not better, period. I don't care how many times we played it, they weren't better. We were better. Period. And we didn't win, and that was the toughest one." I remember him crying, literal tears in his eyes after the Celtics beat them, Krikorian said. "He took it as hard as any player I've ever seen, but he was always talking to the reporters. He never refused to talk. He was high-strung, obviously. He was a marvelous player, just marvelous. I really have blocked out almost all of that stuff out of my mind," West said. "The only ones that have any clarity to me are the first one and the last one. Those are the only two. The first one because of the excitement, how the game ended, what the locker room was like. The last one with the ugly feelings I had. I didn't want to play basketball ever again. I didn't want to ever see another basketball game again. I was furious with our owner putting those balloons up there. It made me mad." 1969 was also the year that the NBA Commissioner J. Walter Kennedy commissioned Alan Siegel, a branding pioneer, to revamp the NBA's logo. And legend has it that Alan Siegel saw a picture taken by the late Wen Roberts from Sports Illustrated of Jerry West being the inspiration behind the logo. It was an instant hit, and although the NBA never publicly acknowledged that it was Jerry West, everybody knows this to be the case. It's crazy for me to think just how iconic the NBA logo is, and when we dive deeper into the life and the career of Jerry West, I don't know if there is a player or a person that better exemplifies and represents what the NBA is. Although he never made a big deal about him being the logo, that just wasn't his personality, I think we can all agree the historical and cultural significance of the NBA logo is still alive and well today, and I think will last for decades and decades to come. Before the 1969-1970 season, the Lakers would hire a new coach, Joe Mulaney, with Coach Van Bredekoff resigning and joining the Detroit Pistons as their head coach. Wilt would play just 12 games this year. Jerry would lead the league in scoring and finish with 7.5 assists per game. The Lakers would finish 46-36, but beat the Phoenix Suns in 7 games, who were led by Connie Hawkins and former teammate Gail Goodrich, that they lost in the NBA expansion draft. They would then sweep the Atlanta Hawks again in the Western Division Finals, matching up for the first time in a long time, not the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals. Both Sam Jones and Bill Russell had retired after the 1969 NBA Finals, and the Celtics had their first down season in a long time that year, going 34-48. Instead, the Lakers would take on the New York Knicks and league MVP that season, Willis Reed. The Knicks won 60 games and also had 24-year-old point guard Walt Frazier, who averaged 20.9 points per game, 8.2 assists, and 6 rebounds. And then, of course, a trio of scorers in Dick Barnett, who averaged 14.9 points per game, Dave DeBusschere, 14.6 points per game, and 10 rebounds, and Bill Bradley, who averaged 14.5 points per game as well. Throughout the 1960s, Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain dominated the MVP award, both winning 4 apiece, with Oscar Robertson winning in 1964 and Wes Unseld in 1969. So with Bill retired and Wilt Chamberlain getting older, 1970 was Jerry West's best chance at winning his only MVP award, but instead he would lose the voting to Willis Reed, getting 51 first place votes to Willis Reed's 61 and losing by points 498 to 457 in Game 1 of the 1970 NBA Finals. The Knicks would trail by 1 point going into the fourth quarter before outscoring the Lakers in the fourth quarter 35-20, winning 124-112. Willis Reed was phenomenal. He had 37 points, 16 rebounds, 5 assists. Meanwhile, Jerry had a rare performance where he did not shoot it well from the field, going 9 for 23, which is good for just 39%. But the Lakers would bounce back in Game 2, winning 105-103. So the Lakers did what they came there to do in those first 2 road games, stealing home court advantage from the Knicks. And in Game 3, Dave DeBusschere would put the Knicks up 102-100 with this shot with just 3 seconds left on the clock before Jerry West hit one of the greatest shots in NBA history that most people have forgotten, a 3/4 court buzzer beater that sent this game to overtime. Unfortunately for the Lakers, there was no 3-point line then, only the ABA had that, and so yeah, it tied the game 102-102. However, in overtime, Jerry would not make a shot, and the Knicks would win 111-108. And while everyone else remembers that shot vividly and iconically, Jerry West was not impressed with himself. Roland Lazenby records that he was almost taken back by the celebratory approach to his shot in the locker room afterward. The shot meant nothing, he told Bill Libby. Afterward, when everyone kept asking me about the shot, I had to remind them that we lost the game. In another incredible game that goes to overtime in Game 4, the Lakers would win 121-115. Jerry West played 52 minutes, had 37 points and 18 assists. Elgin Baylor finally came alive again with 30 points, 13 rebounds. Wilt Chamberlain 18 and 25. Game 5 in Madison Square Garden, Willis Reed would tear a muscle in his quad in the first quarter, not return, and now the Lakers had a massive advantage. They had to capitalize this poor injury luck from the Knicks, and the Lakers led most of the game, but they would blow an 18-point lead and lose 107-100. Of course, they bounced back in Game 6 with Willis Reed out. Nobody could stop Wilt Chamberlain. He had 45 points and 27 rebounds. The Lakers dominate 135-113, returning to Madison Square Garden for Game 7. And this is where the iconic Willis Reed moment happens. Nobody expected him to play. There were rumors about it, but it wasn't really believed. In a shocking turn of events, Willis Reed would emerge from the locker room, run out onto the floor. The Madison Square Garden crowd went wild, announcing he was going to play in this game, and he hits the first shot of the night for the Knicks, which was all the momentum that they needed, beating the Lakers in Game 7 113-99. Walt Frazier went absolutely berserk in this game. He had 36 points on just 12 for 17 from the field, 19 assists, and 7 rebounds. Willis Reed is named Finals MVP, and again, Jerry West, this time not to the Celtics, made his 7th NBA Finals appearance and lost his 7th NBA Finals. During the 1970-71 season, Jerry West would tear his MCL on March 2nd and be out for the rest of the season and the playoffs. And then Elgin Baylor, at 36 years old, would tear his Achilles in just the second game of the season. With Jerry and Elgin out for the playoffs, the Lakers would rely on a couple players not as known. Gail Goodrich, a 27-year-old who the Lakers had drafted, lost for 2 years during the expansion draft to the Phoenix Suns. He would have a breakout playoffs, averaging 25.4 points per game with Jerry out. And then 22-year-old Jim McMillan averaged 15 points per game, and Happy Hairston 17. But the Lakers would end up losing in 5 games to the Milwaukee Bucks with Oscar Robertson and second-year center Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The Bucks would go on to win the NBA Finals, sweeping the Baltimore Bullets, winning 66 games that year in dominant fashion. Kareem's stat line was 31.7 points per game, 16 boards on 57.7% from the field. And to make things more painful for Jerry West, it was the 4th time in his 11-year career that he wouldn't make an NBA Finals, the 2nd time without really playing at all in the playoffs, with Oscar Robertson now winning his first ring before Jerry had. Oscar and Jerry had been attached at the hip since college, and Oscar was always on pretty bad Cincinnati Royals teams, so for him to go to the Milwaukee Bucks and win a title in his first year there had to be painful for Jerry. Going into the 1971-1972 season, the Lakers would get a new coach, Bill Sharman, a former Celtics player. And at the beginning of the season, he asked Jerry to move to point guard, which Jerry happily obliged. He was 32 years old. He had to start changing his game one way or another. And according to Ronald Lazenby, Bill Sharman was an incredible mind. He actually made the Lakers this season the first team in NBA history to watch game film. To start off this season, the Lakers would go 6-3, with 4 of those games Jerry being out, all 3 of their losses with a sprained ankle. And Sharman had wanted Elgin Baylor to go to the bench, be someone they could bring off the bench in quick spurts, but he was 37 years old. Bill Sharman was really hoping to get Jim McMillan in to start. So after those 9 games, when Sharman approached Elgin Baylor about coming off the bench, Elgin instead said that if he couldn't play up to his standards, it was probably time for him to retire, and he did so next day. Being 6-3 when Elgin retired, they would then rattle off 33 games straight, having perfect months of November and December, which is still the greatest win streak in a season in NBA history. It really started to feel like Jerry had a team for the first time in his career. Instead of it just being Elgin Baylor and Jerry trying to outscore the Boston Celtics, they had pieces around them that fit well. Gail Goodrich would pick right back off where he left off in the playoffs, averaging 25.9 points per game this year, and Jim McMillan 18.8. Jerry saw his scoring dip a little bit, but he was perfectly happy with that as they had a team around him. It wasn't just going to be his burden to score. He averaged 25.8 points per game and led the league in assists at 9.7. This just felt to be the Lakers' year from the start. And to make matters even better, the All-Star game was played at the Forum that year. Jerry West hit a buzzer beater to win 112-110. After sweeping the Bulls in the first round of the playoffs, they'd match up with the Milwaukee Bucks in the Western Conference Finals. At home in game 1, the Lakers would shoot as a team just 27% from the field. Jerry would go 4 for 19, Jim McMillan 3 for 20, Gail Goodrich 2 for 14, in an awful showing, losing 93-72. Here we go again. Game 2 gave some fortune back to the Lakers. This should have been a steal for the Bucks, but somehow Jerry West gets it back. And that was with the Lakers up 1 point with only 20 or 30 seconds left on the clock. They win game 2, 135-134. Jim McMillan was absolutely clutch. He had 42 points on 16 for 25 from the field. Meanwhile, Jerry did have 28 points, 13 assists, 7 rebounds, but he shot at just 10 for 30 from the field. The Lakers win game 3. The Bucks blow them out in game 4. The Lakers return the favor in game 5. And to seal it in game 6, the Lakers win 104-100. Oscar Robertson did have a stomach muscle injury that kept him out most of game 6. However, the Lakers were back in the NBA Finals against the New York Knicks again, but there was one problem. Jerry West was in a massive slump. In those 6 games versus the Bucks, he scored just 21.8 points per game. Jim McMillan scored more than him at 22.7, and he shot just 34.8% from the field. Jerry goes on record saying this was the worst shooting slump of his career, and he never felt like this since like the 7th grade. If he wanted to win his first ring, he had to snap out of it in the NBA Finals. The Knicks had bolstered their roster even more since 1970, adding Jerry Lucas and Earl Monroe, but Willis Reed would get hurt and was not playing in the NBA Finals. Game 1, nothing had changed for Jerry. He shot just 3 for 15 from the field, had just 12 points, and the Lakers got blown out 114-92. Bill Bradley had 29 on 11 for 12 from the field for the Knicks. Jerry Lucas had 26, and Walt Frazier had a triple-double, 14, 12, and 11. Game 2, the Lakers would bounce back, winning 106-92 on the back of Gail Goodrich, who had 34 points on 14 for 18 from the field, and Wilt woke up a little bit, scored 23 points, had 24 rebounds. Jerry, however, still shot just 6 for 21 from the field, 15 points, and 13 assists. The Lakers then go on to win the next 3 games, and they win the NBA Finals for the first time, 4-1, a moment that should have been as sweet as anything in Jerry West's career. Although he was happy for his teammates, he was very disappointed in his own performance. He averaged just 19.8 points per game. He did have 8.8 assists, but he shot probably a career worst 32.5% from the field in the series. As I'm sure you know by now, Jerry West is a harsh critic on himself, and throughout his entire basketball career, he was chasing a feeling of fulfillment that he never got, even when he finally won his ring. Here's him talking about it on the Paul George podcast.
That was not meaningful for me.
Yeah.
Happy for the people.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones I felt badly for. The only joy that I ever got is watching those guys. And it was torture for me to try to figure out how could I find some way to feel good about myself. And I couldn't.
Entering the 1972-73 season, Jerry West was 34 years old, and the Lakers had hopes to run it back with the exact same core, repeating as champions. They would go 60-22, take care of the Chicago Bulls in a surprising 7 games before beating the Golden State Warriors in 5. This time, the Golden State Warriors had Rick Barry back from his NBA ban, and the Lakers still took care of business, matching up in the NBA Finals for the third time in 4 years with the New York Knicks. LA would take the first game 115-112 before losing by 4, 5, and 9 in 4 straight games, a gentleman's sweep, and the last NBA Finals that Jerry West would be a part of. The 1973-74 season would be the final one for Jerry West. He'd play in just 31 games due to a groin injury, despite still averaging 20.3 points per game. In that final season, he would become just the 3rd player in NBA history to reach 25,000 points at the time, following Wilt Chamberlain and Oscar Robertson. There was some weird stuff contractually that happened towards the end of Jerry's playing career with the owner. Basically, he found out Wilt Chamberlain was not getting paid the same amount as him, but more under the table, and Jerry went on record the rest of his life saying he didn't have an issue with getting paid less than Wilt, but he had a big issue with people lying to him. Jerry actually planned on playing 1 more season. However, Roland Lazenby put it like this: he knew he could have played 2 more years and wanted to play, but not for Cook, the Lakers owner. I could have played another very good year, West said. Every athlete says that, but I could have, and I knew I could have. I could never have played for the Lakers again, and I wasn't going to play anywhere else. Newell went to work as GM, trying to stave off disaster. I begged him to change his mind, he recalled. It just crushed me when Jerry phoned and said, "Pete, I'm going to retire." There's no question about it, Chick Hearn recalled of this incident. Jerry West should have played another 2 years. West, though, was determined. He retired at 36, walking away the day after a dazzling preseason performance against Portland. 3 years later, Jerry West and Jack Kent Clark would repair their relationship, and Jerry would become the head coach for the Lakers. But he just didn't feel like that was a good fit for him. He enjoyed those times, but after 3 seasons as the Lakers head coach, he moved into a scouting role, and by 1982 he became the general manager, where he would remain for 18 seasons. Between his time as a player scout and his general managing tenure, the Lakers would win 6 more championships, and most notably, Jerry West was the one who pulled off the Kobe trade at the 1996 NBA draft. trading a really good center, Vlade Divac, to the Charlotte Hornets for the 13th pick. And I found this in my research. He convinced John Calipari with the Nets at the 8th pick not to take Kobe Bryant. Jerry also has gone on record saying Kobe Bryant was the best player in the draft. He would have taken him at number 1. But to make things even crazier, Jerry bet everything that offseason after getting Kobe at pick 13 on signing away Shaquille O'Neal away from the Orlando Magic, something that no one really thought was that feasible early in the offseason. But Jerry put in the work to build trust with Shaq to the point where when things got contentious between Phil Jackson and Jerry West in the 1999-2000 season, and Jerry decided to step away from the Lakers, Shaq went on record saying he would have stayed with the Lakers a lot longer if Jerry was still around. After his time in LA, he would become the general manager for the Memphis Grizzlies, a team that was an expansion team, had never won more than like 23 or 24 games. In Jerry's second season with them, they would win 50 games and make the playoffs 3 straight years. He became an executive board member for the Golden State Warriors from 2011 to 2017. In his time with Golden State, he was a massive advocate for selecting Klay Thompson with the 11th overall pick in the 2011 draft, and with Draymond Green in the second round at number 35 overall in the 2012 NBA draft. He also successfully labored against trading away Klay Thompson for Kevin Love, and helped the Warriors win their first championship in 2015 in 40 years. And lastly, he served as a consultant to Steve Ballmer, the owner of the Los Angeles Clippers, from 2017 until the time he passed this past June, where he helped play a part in successfully signing Kawhi Leonard during that 2019 offseason, which, if Kawhi doesn't get hurt, could have been 1 or 2 more NBA championships in Jerry West's career. And even at the age of 86, watching some of these interviews he gave over just the past year alone, he was still so sharp, he was soft-spoken, he seemed like such a good guy. The NBA and humanity as a whole lost someone super special on June 12th, and I hope this video has given you more insight and done some justice to his legacy. Jerry West was my dad's favorite player growing up and his favorite athlete of all time, and so I was super thankful to learn of these stories over the years. And once his death was announced, I couldn't help but pass along a lot of this information, plus things that I learned through my research as well, to continue his memory and his legacy going, especially to this next generation that I don't know if they knew much about him. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a lot longer than I'm used to. Rest in peace, Jerry West. And as always, we'll see you on the hardwood.